As Margie said, I'm Sharon Garewal. I'm a metadata librarian at JSTOR, and I'm here to talk about our case study a year later. Last year, Nancy Murray, our Associate Director of Metadata, presented our pilot project and the start of the build of the JSTOR Thesaurus. Oh, there we go. So the introduction, go over briefly what JSTOR is, where we left off last year, where we are now with the build of the thesaurus. And mainly my contribution and what I'm going to focus on the most are the maintenance and editing processes, our training documentations, our how-to docs, our workflows, things that I've worked on over the last year and that we're still cultivating today. So that's going to be the bulk of the presentation, and then where we're going in 2014 and beyond. So for those of you that aren't familiar with JSTOR, we're a not-for-profit digital archive. We started in 1995, and we archive scholarly journals and books, and we have some primary source content. Just to throw some numbers at you, we have over 1,000 publishers, 1,900 academic journals, over 8 million articles, 21,000 books, and our publishing dates go back to 1545. Our academic journals, we go back to the first issue of the first journal in that run, so we include all of the title changes within a journal. Last year we had over 138 million searches performed. Oops. So here's a little pie chart of our subject areas. As you can see, our three biggest areas are social sciences, humanities, and history. And we're also growing in business and economics, arts, and science and math. But these three main areas, that's the bulk of our content. And really the catalyst of why we thought we really need a thesaurus, because there's no thesaurus out there right now that is encompassing mainly our social sciences, humanities, and history area. So that's where we started in June of 2012. There was a pilot project to better understand the use and deployment of thesauri and to test our disciplines. We tested 3 disciplines to start with: history, science, and business, and we selected 15,000 articles across our content types and across spans of time. And we had access innovations, auto-index and assign terms, and add a rule base. And what we learned from that was that choosing the right thesaurus was really important. And rule building increased accuracy up to 88%. But mainly what we realized with this maintenance is going to be ongoing. So if we wanted to move forward for all of our disciplines, this was not something we can do one time. It was going to have to be a project that spanned time and that we would have to curate on a daily basis, because we add content on a daily basis. So from that, we moved into the building of the thesaurus, which took place in approximately October of 2012 through May of 2013. Access Innovations selected and collected over 17 source vocabularies, which you'll see on your right. They merged all those and created a hierarchy for us. They removed all the duplicates. They added non-preferred terms. They added related terms. They built and tested all the rules, all the while keeping the construction standards in mind and using all of our content. During this time, we had weekly phone calls with Access Innovations to talk about how the project was going, what thesauri they were merging that week, any questions they had about our content. And also during this time, we talked about how we were going to maintain this when it was delivered to us. So it was really a learning process over those months of how we were going to actually edit this when it came to us and it was delivered and in-house. We also came back in May towards the end of the project. Myself, Nancy, and another manager, Jonathan, came here for 3 days of hands-on training, in depth, just like DHUG, but it was all based on JSTOR Thesaurus, which was really wonderful. And we talked specifically about how we were going to term build, rule build, and then create workflows. So our thesaurus was officially delivered by Access Innovations in 2013. And we've continued our editorial relationship with Access Innovations. We basically won't let them go, especially Bob, who has been our Yoda, our guru this entire time. He puts up with weekly go-to meetings from myself and Nancy and our team, answers myriads of questions, and some of them are probably he probably laughs. I mean, I'm a little embarrassed with some of the questions, but we have this great relationship with Access Innovations where they're really helping us move forward with our maintenance. We just recently added 2 more JSTOR librarians to this team, which you met yesterday, Emily and Allison. Emily's been on this project for about 5 months, and Allison just started last month, and we're happy to have them because we have a lot of work. As of January 31st, our thesaurus statistics for the JSTOR Thesaurus, we have over 56,000 preferred terms, 41,000 equivalent terms, and over 100,000 rules. So here's a snapshot of what the JSTOR Thesaurus looks like. We call it JThes for short. We have 18 top-level terms, and on our browse page on our public site, we have 68 disciplines that users can choose from. So our hierarchy has been broken down into 18 top-level terms. And as you can see, I have applied sciences open to applied chemistry, and then we go down about 4 levels. We have at least 8 levels deep, but I couldn't fit it into the screenshot. So last year at DHUG, that was my first experience. I was a deer in headlights. I had no idea what any of this was, and I was completely terrified. And I was sitting next to Jabin, and he said, "Why are you so terrified? You're going to present next year." And I thought I might explode. I didn't know what to expect, but it's been a great learning process. And being here that week and coming back this week, I can see how much we've learned, and how much more there is to learn actually. But one of the first things we did when we got back from DHUG last year was we needed a place to store information internally so that we could all be on the same page on our team. So like Marcy alluded to, everyone needs to have the same documentation, the same templates, and working from the same space. So we created a SharePoint site which we use internally. And this is where I upload all the documents, where we lock documents, we work on them, where we have our workflows. So that was one of the first things we did. Moving forward, my main task over this last year was coming up with a training program. I had to learn about building and maintaining a taxonomy and rule building and all the testing, and then through that learning be able to train other librarians. So I created a training PowerPoint, which I'll go through, and some pre-training day activities. So once Emily and Allison came on the team, and I knew they'd be able to devote some of their time, because they have a ton of other tasks at JSTOR as a librarian. So I gave, about a month before, we go through some pre-training day activities. So, it's kind of like setting up to get ready for a 5K. We start out slow with walking, getting Maestro set up on the computer, reading through the construction standards, reading through internal documents. They start attending our weekly meetings, and we have weekly phone calls. We do 3 to 4 days of hands-on training in Maestro. And then moving from that training, we have weekly tasks that get, progressively harder. We start by just moving around terms, adding terms, changing capitalization. We move into interpreting rules and adding rules. So the next about 14 slides I'm going to show you are from our training PowerPoint. It's just a smattering of them, but it'll give you a flavor of kind of what we go over and how we have it structured, which is basically I just took a knockoff from DHUG. That's how I structured the training. The first day is essentially the terminology, the definitions, what's a taxonomy. We go into our pilot project and just a big overview. The second day is Thesaurus Master and your term building and your hierarchies. Third day is rule building, and the fourth day is test MAI. So I'm going to jump right into term building and reviewing a branch. So these are our steps to reviewing a branch. We orient ourselves in a discipline or branch. And by that I mean, maybe I assign someone food sciences as a branch to start looking at. Just looking at the actual terms, the term record, and getting familiar. Looking at the non-preferred terms, looking at the related terms, and just starting to really understand how they're related in the hierarchy. Also reading just a brief overview of like an encyclopedia article entry about food sciences. Maybe you've never thought about food sciences before. With over 56,000 terms in all these branches, there's going to be a lot of information that is all new. So getting just a brief overview. Reviewing each term. With that, it's just literally going down the hierarchy to narrower terms and looking at the terms and looking them up in the dictionary if you don't know what the term means. There are so many terms that I don't know what they mean. I spend a lot of time looking at the dictionary. Like spoilage organism, I had no idea. That made sense in food science after I read the dictionary entry, so that was good. Taking notes is done simultaneously while you're doing your review and you're researching. The research is the more in-depth part, where we start looking at authoritative sources, .edus, .orgs, .govs, to really, get a focus on what this branch is about, this discipline. What can we do? Are there things missing? Can we add related terms? And then we move into organizing the branch. So while we're looking at these terms, we're keeping the following in mind. This comes from the criteria for term selection in your taxonomy, which actually Kirk from Access Innovations gave me last year at DHUG when I said, how do you know what term to pick? Where do you even start? And this was one of the great tools he gave me that we've utilized at JSTOR. Mainly we look at appropriacy. Is this appropriate for our target audience, our researchers, our scholars that are using JSTOR? Does it belong in the coverage of our thesaurus structure? And one of the huge ones we talk about a lot is warrant, which is at the end. Is there user warrant and is there literary warrant within JSTOR to add this term? So this is, kind of like the research branch, researching your branch. And one of the first things I did was costume design. Usually we like to start with something we're really interested in, and I have a background in fashion merchandising, so I chose costume design. And then we pick something that you would never want to pick, like, I don't know, molecular biology. That's not something I really want to look at, but I would have to, and you have to see that all of the steps are the same. No matter what branch you're in, you can do the research. So here I did a search in JSTOR. I looked up costume design. I saw what kind of articles, what kind of journals, are they in article titles? Where's this term falling? I looked at, the costume encyclopedia to get myself back in that mindset of my bachelor's degree of, oh yeah, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about historic costume. We're talking about costume design in theaters. I looked at course syllabi for graduate level courses. You can look at any kind of database, any kind of the databases that you have. Authoritative sources are the best, but also I use non-authoritative sources too, just to get a wide variety of ideas of what's out there. I'm not ashamed. I Google, I use Wikipedia. I will use anything to understand a topic better. Moving from that, taking notes. I started with pen and paper, and I realized how unruly that was, and I was getting confused in my notes. So I started with using Word, and I like to do strike through. I like color. I like making little keys for myself. So this is kind of what I did. Bolding was adding a term. Strike through was I thought I would add that term, but then I realized the content didn't warrant it, so I strike through it. This is all internal stuff. So no one outside the organization is going to see it. No one maybe outside my team is going to see this. So it's really what works best for the team member. I moved on to Google Docs. This is a review of the sociology branch. And we're having good luck with working in Excel, like this spreadsheet kind of way, with building out the terms, how many hits are in JSTOR. By hits, I mean putting that term in the JSTOR search within quotation marks and seeing how many times it actually comes up in the documents. So applied science appears over 2,800 times in our JSTOR content. Some notes, recommendations. We've added to this into non-preferred terms, additional related terms, notes from Bob, and my favorite is the rabbit hole, which is when I start researching something and I get off track, but it's interesting and I think it could be something we want to add to JSTOR, but I don't have time to go down that road. I put it in the rabbit hole for later. We came up with a decision tree to start somewhere with, close to almost 9 million documents now. How do I know when I want to add a term? So a lot of this is subjective, but it was a place to start. So from the top, does the term already exist in our thesaurus? We do a quick thesaurus search. If it's there, great. Can you add non-preferred terms? Can you add related terms? You're done. If it's not in the thesaurus, search JSTOR with quotations quotation marks around your term and see how many search results there are. If there's under 100, we end up not adding the term. If there's more than 100, we start to investigate further. We see what the term is about, where it's appearing in JSTOR. Is it in the article titles? What journals have it? And then from the criteria that we've reviewed, we decide to add the term or put it aside for now. Moving from term building, the third day, we talk about rules. Starting off with simple rules, and I won't go over too much of this because I don't want to basically take away anybody's thunder for Thursday and Friday. A lot of this comes from that documentation, but we start off with the simple rules, where in Maestro we have, if you add a term, you get the identity rule. So here you have beat culture as your term, and use beat culture is your identity rule. The same is true for your non-preferred terms. We have synonym rules that are automatically made. Beat nix is a synonym for beat culture. You automatically get use beat culture. So those are automatically given to you by the software. Complex rules, we start with proximity rules, near, with, around, and mentions. So I think Rachel showed you a great rule where she was using mentions a lot, which is within 25 words of your text to match, which is the text that you're looking at in your document. And this helps cut down on noise by establishing broader areas. We don't use it as frequently, but it's a great way to, like when you have a general topic, to really kind of hone in on the branch you want it to be in. Further complex rules include all caps, initial caps, begin sentence, end sentence, linking these all with Booleans, and you can also nest rules to make them dependent on each other. It's kind of like a crossword puzzle, and each time a new team member has started, it's been a bit, we've realized it's like reading code. You have to just get it in your head that it's not anything you've ever read before. It's almost like working in a crossword puzzle and working in code, so it can be really challenging but really fun too when you get your documents to index correctly. So here's an example of a proximity rule at work. This is text to match to beauty. And just the top line, it's very small, but it says, if with art or with aesthetic or around judge or around standard, use aesthetic judgment. So we're using this the proximities. We're also truncating the words so that we're getting all of the different endings. So we're getting artistic, artist, and so on. Quick examples of else, if, and all caps. We have dipping as our text to match. Use plunge dipping. Otherwise, if you have all of these other triggers, use tobacco chewing. We have AIDS, if all caps, use AIDS. In our database, we have that as acquired immune deficiency syndrome. The last day, we talk about testing articles, which is the Test MAI tab in Maestro. And this is the funnest part for me. I like this because it kind of pulls everything together, and this is where you can really see how your hierarchy is working, and as Margie talked about earlier this morning, you get your hits, misses, and noise. So from the Test MAI, you choose an article you want to review, you copy and paste it, and you get suggested terms. We have ours set at 10 terms that are going to be the results. The left-hand side that's bolded, that's the term in the thesaurus. On the right-hand side is the term that's in the document that's triggering it. Hits are, it's good. You read the article and you're like, that's exactly what this article is about. You can stop right there. Misses is the system misses the term the editor uses, so you need to follow that up and see if you can add to your terms, maybe add a non-preferred term, tweak your rule base. And then misses or noise is something that it suggests incorrectly. That's not really what the article was about. So for example, misses, if you have an obituary, you have the term obituaries as in your hierarchy, but that only appears once in your document. But death of and born on, in memorial, funeral, that all appears in the document. It's obviously about an obituary. You look at that and you can add proximity rules so that that article will index to that indexing term. A noisy term that we just came across was universities. It was very noisy for us because it appeared throughout our documentation, in people just referencing. Sharon Garewal went to Kent State University, and she works with Emily Betwee, who graduated from University of Michigan. University, and it just was all over all the documents. And a lot of the times, that's not what the document was about at all. So we looked at that, and we tightened up the proximities for the university rule. We also nulled out university of in some universities that has just appeared a ton. Null meaning we just ignore that phrase or that term within the document. So here's a quick review of how to actually do a test case. Here I just pulled an article from JSTOR, Making Space, Law and Science Fiction. I would read the abstract, I'd scan it. I'm not reading these in depth. With that many articles, we just don't have, it would just be crazy to try and do that. So we copy and paste it into the test MAI, and we get our suggested terms. Science fiction is top, yay, that's a hit. Embryos is second, I'm not sure, probably good. It's talking about science fiction. Humans seems general, could be noisy. That would be something I think I would look at a little bit further. But that's how we do a quick analysis of our database and our JSTOR Thesaurus. Moving on from that, we have some documents that I'd like to go over. These how-to guides with the presentation this morning. I realize they're going to have to be updated, which is always good, but they're continually being updated. So we have how-to guides on how to configure Unicode settings in web browsers. We copy and paste from our web browser into Maestro. We use anything with a diacritic will make a non-preferred term in our thesaurus. So we just wanted to make sure everyone was UTF-8 and using that in all the different web browsers. How to correct capitalization. With merging so many thesauri, especially with NASA, we noticed they didn't capitalize their terms at all. We like the term to have, an initial cap. It's just a little cleanup project, but really good for training new team members. How to export a sub-branch. We've used that when we've tried to work with different subject matter experts so they can look at one branch at a time. How to remove related terms which appear in the same branch. That's something that came up when closer to the end of the project, so many people were working on it and moving things around. And towards the end, we decided in our admin module that the related terms that live on the same branch, in one branch, those are all just going to be, we're going to say those are all related. That's going to just be a known entity. We don't actually have to put the RT in there. So let's just remove them. We also have a term building and a rule building instructions. So here's a snippet from our rule building instructions. In both of these documents, we have all the key terms, definitions, best practices, and examples. And these documents are basically updated on a weekly basis after our phone calls with Bob. He has no idea how many times I say from Bob, and I just copy and paste something he said into our instruction document. But it's been helpful over the last year to keep notes and give examples of, especially with rules, to remember how to, this one is using parentheses within a condition and giving examples of that, how to nest, how to have these dependent terms on each other. It's concepts that you have to get used to using and keep using so you're comfortable doing it. We came up with parking lots as a way to keep track of our terms and our rules. A lot of terms come up just in general. I could be watching a movie and I'll think, is that term in the thesaurus? I should look that up. Or I'll be talking to someone. I was just talking to Allison, and she said, I keep thinking about copycat. Is copycat in the thesaurus? And and then it made me think, I need to look at that. And maybe I'll look at it even further, but I know I don't have time to, do the whole analysis, so I'll put it in a parking lot. This is a snippet of our rule building parking lot. Where these come up with, when we're testing documents or during a data analysis. And it's a good place to just keep track of what's going on so you can assign these different rules to be built and when they're completed. Some of the workflows that we've started over this last 6 months, and we're continuing to curate and make better and streamline better, are data analysis. We can do a general accuracy data analysis of all of our content, and we can also do a subject-specific one where it's journal-based or discipline-based. We just recently did a general accuracy one that finished in December. So Bob had a team of 7 people here at Access Innovations, and myself, Nancy, and Emily worked at JSTOR, and we sampled 1,000 articles across our content types and disciplines and time spans. And we came up with a lot of great information for terms and rule building. And we found that our accuracy was really great. It was over 80%. We came up with the 15 noisiest terms, which we think once we get those taken care of, that's going to go up even higher. So I was really pleased with that. Our new content assessment, we get weekly reports from our content development department of journals that they sign that are coming into JSTOR, and they're going to be ingested within the next year. So we look at, what's the journal name, what's the aims and scope of that journal, what are some of can we look at table of contents, can we look at some things online to give us an idea of the discipline that it's in, and if we have the content in our thesaurus to support that. We also have weekly reviews of books that are being ingested. We just had over 800 books in physics, so I wanted to make sure the physics branch looked tight, and that was going to be something that was going to support, the book's content. Search log review, we'd like to do this semi-annually. We've been doing it yearly, and it gives us so many search results yearly that it's almost hard to wade through. I think we had over 300,000 lines in an Excel spreadsheet to look at. So it's a report of the search terms in JSTOR over 50. So it has to be searched over 50 times in JSTOR, and then we get this report. And we can review it for concepts that are emerging in what are students really looking for. We use it for acronyms that we don't have, that we can add as non-preferred terms. And we also have found it interesting to see the difference between years and what terms are being searched now and have fallen completely out of favor. We're not going to remove them from the thesaurus. It was just more of an interesting metric. Here's an example of our data analysis spreadsheet. We just use Excel for now. And I've kind of condensed it a little so you don't see the actual accuracy, because that's what the ones are for. Just so you can view it. Here we have the title of the article, we have the file. We've kept track if there's references at the end of the article for our own analysis. We'd like to see if that's affecting our results or not. We copy and paste the suggested terms from the test MAI. We color code it. Not everyone color codes it. I color code it because I like color. So green is hits, yellow is noise, and red is misses. And in this top one, you can see coupons is yellow, so it's considered noise. This article, differential adhesion activity, I don't know, it's some kind of science. It was not about coupons. Coupons in the JSTOR Thesaurus is under marketing, promotions. They're talking about your grocery store coupons, where you're saving money. They're not talking about stainless steel coupons, which was the term in the actual document. So from that, do we need that stainless steel coupons as a term? Can we look at the text to match for coupons and see how we can relate that so it's not indexing in the engineering branch? So that was something that, this is what we come up with, and this is where we came up with our 15 noisiest terms. One of them was universities. Women is another. And then where do we want to go? I had 2 slides. I had challenges and where we wanted to go. And then Nancy told me, do you realize you have the exact same thing on both slides? And I said, no, I didn't realize that. So I put it in the positive light. Instead of challenges, I put where we want to go. And our top priority this year is implementation. So we're currently working with other teams at JSTOR, user experience design, so how it's going to look to the public site, analytics to run, metrics. And really this has been, it's hard. As you know, you work with many different departments across different offices. It's hard to get people's time. It's hard to get people's, on their agendas. So this is something we're really excited about and moving forward with for 2014. The name file, for us, we're talking about people, places, and things. We're concepts thesaurus. We don't have, all of the geological names. We don't have states. We don't have, famous people. This isn't talking about authors like disambiguation. We're talking about Benjamin Franklin, Abe Lincoln, things like that. So we're looking at a name file. And once again, the challenge is working with all of these different departments to gather the analytics and gather the metrics to prove that this is all going to be worthwhile and it's going to be awesome and create even faster search and more accurate searching. Staffing and resources, we're going to continue to train additional librarians and create additional workflows. So we added Allison just last month. We're adding more hours to their time, which has been great. In the last year, I mean, I've moved from 10 hours a week to 15 hours a week to 20 hours a week to 30 hours a week. So the challenge has been just trying to find time in your schedule with all the other things we've done to make this a priority and to be able to work on staffing and resources. And lastly, subject matter experts. We want to set up a system to work with SMEs. We started trying to do this last year, and it was overwhelming. We wrote a survey, we gave it to a linguistics branch that were our JPass users, so registered users who said they would be okay with being contacted, and nobody clicked our links. So that was sad, wah, wah, wah. We worked really hard on that, and that didn't work. But we also reached out to listservs. We targeted librarians, especially for history. And we said, can you help us do this survey? And we got 2 responses, which we thought was awesome. But we learned that we really need to be more focused and have a better roadmap of how we're going to work with SMEs, what we want from them, the questions we need answered. So that's something that we learned that we're not ready for. So when I looked at, our challenges and where we want to go, I thought we really needed all of this learning about the source, how to build it, starting workflows to even get to this point. So I think we've come pretty far, and we have a long way to go. So hopefully next year our presentation will be encompassing all of these. So that's all. Thank you.